authenticate to get on email. So I can send an email address from your guys' registration to and he can notify them of that. So I don't know, like use the best way to do it, but if you want to give me an email, is someone who
yeah, you're not getting through the doors.
No, it's not that this isn't anything serious. It's just
te.com.
there. I got it. Got it? Yeah,
And
thank you.
someone will, whoever feels photos will monitoring that.
Okay, are you gonna be here for a second?
Yeah.
I'm just gonna.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah.
From that email thread. So I was wondering if I could get an email address from someone who might be managing this stuff, so that my editor can notify them.
Yeah, Courtroom you sell KYUCEL at mpr.com.
hear it's picking up, so.
Testing, testing, testing.
Great, thank you.
chair there for the officer, or there, and there, and then one was here.
So we got Ruth and, Ruth's gonna be up here. Maybe some of them, I'm gonna sit there, I'm gonna sit right here. They got another one, so I'll sit there or wherever. They can put them here. They can move up and I can leave that seat open.
I can do it, it's too fast. Right here, and then you don't sit back there, so that's
Do that. That'd be great.
sure you want to grab another chair there too. We're gonna move you guys up, because we don't need that to sit in there. So we're gonna move more chairs out. Yeah, we're gonna.
Yes, I think so.
You got it?
Hopefully it doesn't kick me out now.
Yeah. That's,
So are you
I got one more. No, I'm in Minneapolis, yeah, we have a Rochester reporter, Catherine Richard.
sorry,
In kind of Mankato
and that
area.
way you all will do your
Actually, she's-
stuff here.
Worthington is her place, but she works from home. No, no.
Is that enough?
I mean, Rochester would be the closest, that's Catherine Richard, but she's busy. Oh, okay, that's good to know.
Impact statements and
Do you know how many people are giving you the next one?
there's 6 or 5, I think.
I'll check.
Yeah, 5 or 6.
Can you tell us who
I
they
think
are
there's
at
like a
this
room
point?
next door too.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think we'll
I can look those up.
Well, room here,
Is that
and
in
there.
the docket?
Yeah, it's in the document.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah, it's very recent, the last like 5 filings or whatever things. Go ahead and open those and you'll see.
I will take a
I
look.
think one of them's her dad.
I got 7 in here.
How's Julie?
Right, you want to go over here?
It was good.
Cause yeah,
Yeah,
Aaron went up.
there's no time to say, right? No, there's a parking spot right here.
He'll be on the end of that.
No, there's, yeah, there's parking on the street parking.
So, I guess, whenever you're gonna remove is fine.
Okay, so I have all this, we need one upstairs. Yeah, so far there's 3 or 4.
Oh,
could send it also if you don't, if you didn't already send it out to newsroom@m2r.org. That'll make sure everybody's able to see it. had to change it on my computer and they
Yeah.
didn't let me.
I know.
They changed. They made a secret.
Exactly.
That's a good idea. Way around.
Yeah, so I just ever since.
Good idea.
Yeah, well, because, he's moved up there, so I can. I don't know, it's up to you, I think,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, if it's better for you, then it's fine, I can climb over there, it's just gonna be,
You don't want to do that.
yeah. Cause I just think it's a good idea, like, walking around this area, but, I think it should be fine, as long as you don't mind, they said walking by, I don't have any issues. I'm sorry.
All rise. District Court in the state of Minnesota, Winona County is now in session. The Honorable Nancy Byfield presiding.
You may be seated. Right, we'll have the clerk call the case.
Calling State of Minnesota versus Adam Taylor Fravel, 85 CR 23937.
Right, and for the record, you are Adam Taylor Fravel, date of birth January 29, 1994.
Sounds right.
Right. Mr. Fravel, as you know, last month a jury convicted you of 2 counts of murder in the first degree and 2 counts of murder in the second degree. At that time, the court ordered a pre-sentence investigation report, victim impact statements, and a sentencing worksheet. Those documents have now been filed with the court. Mr. Bauer, did you receive copies of those documents?
Yeah, we received copies of the pre-sentence investigation, the sentencing worksheet, and the victim impact statements.
I'll note for the record that Ms. Doken is also present in the courtroom. Also present in the courtroom is Ms. Sonneman, County Attorney, Mr. Popakowitz, and Ms. Gillespie. Ms. Sonneman, did the state receive copies of those sentencing documents?
We did as well, Your Honor, and I've reviewed those.
It's my understanding that some of the victim impact statements will be read in court, is that right?
That's correct, Your Honor. We're prepared to ask the court to allow the several of the family members to read their impact statements, and then our Crime Victims Services Coordinator, Diana Miller, will read 2 of those statements from the family members. So we're ready for that.
All right, you can proceed with that then.
Thank you, Your Honor. The first to read her impact statement will be Madeline Kingsbury's mother, Krista.
Good afternoon.
Please state your name for the record.
Krista Haltgren.
Ms. Hultgren, whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. The defendant could have stopped, but he didn't. He could have treated Madeline like the extraordinary person she was, but he didn't. He could have given Maddie and the kids a good life, but he didn't. Instead, he treated her like she was nothing and made her very existence miserable. He made her feel unlovable, and then he snuffed the life out of her. He ripped her from her children, her family, and her friends. All Madeline wanted was a good life with someone who would love her and the kids unconditionally. And she wanted Adam to continue to be involved in the kids' lives regardless if they were together or not. She felt bad for him, but she couldn't make herself fall in love with someone who treated her like she was nothing. She wanted and deserved more. The defendant never owned the right to keep Madeline isolated away, and he certainly didn't own the right to end her life. He has ruined so many lives, and he took my child from me. I don't understand why he thought killing her was the only option. There were so many opportunities to do something different. The only thing Madeline's children will know about him when they're old enough to understand is what kind of a deplorable human being he turned out to be. Excuse me. Madeline posted a picture on March 26th, 2023, of her daughter enjoying birthday cake on her 5th birthday. We were all there. How sickening that just days later Madeline was gone. And no, I had only recently weaned from nursing and was barely 2 years old. I will never forget that gut feeling or pit in my stomach on March 31st, 2023. I knew something was terribly wrong when I hadn't heard from Madeline all day. Little did I know that this was only the beginning of the end. I have been unable to work for much of the past 19 months due to mental and physical health issues caused by the defendant's action. I see how the defendant's action has rained catastrophic grief on Madeline's other mom, Kathy, and her father, David, and yet they have persevered and continued to provide a loving home for Madeline's children. Madeline's siblings, Megan, Stephen, and Holly, have had to deal with insurmountable sadness, yet continue to carry on with strength and resilience. The defendant's sentence is far from satisfying. It does not bring me joy. It does not ease my pain and suffering. However, a life sentence is just. He will need to live without his children, his family, his friends, his conveniences. He will live with what he did, and I pray he feels the weight of that for life. I continue to live my worst nightmare over and over again. There is no peace, no reassurance, no happy ending. Instead, Madeline's kids will grow up without their mommy, and we go on as best as possible without our daughter, sister, friend, and aunt. The wake he has left is far-reaching and hardly slows to a ripple. It will never be still. I will never understand why Adam took Madeline's life. There can never be an answer to satisfy that question. I will do my best to advocate for those in need of safety and protection, to love Madeline's children, and to be a good human and to heal in the best way possible. Thank you.
Ms. Sonneman?
The next individual to give a statement is one of Madeline Kingsbury's sisters.
you please state your name for the record?
Holly Waterston.
Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Holly Waterston, and Maddie is my stepsister through my mom, Kathy Kingsbury's marriage to Dave Kingsbury. I am here today to talk about the impact Maddie's disappearance, murder, and subsequent trial has had not only on me, but especially on the children of our family. It is impossible to describe all the pieces, infinite and complex, that make up our losses. We all now live on a shattered timeline of life. There was a giant fissure, a crack, on March 31st, 2023. Our lives will forever be defined in terms of before Maddie went missing and after. None of us will ever be the same people we were before this horrific nightmare started. Maddie was a deeply caring and thoughtful sister. She not only welcomed me with open arms to my family, but also had a special bond with my biological sister, Heather. After a lifelong battle with a rare autoimmune disease, Heather lost her life to leukemia. Her funeral was on June 7th, 2012, where Maddie shared a beautiful and compassionate poem she wrote to honor Heather. Exactly 11 years later, on June 7th, 2023, Maddie's body was found. 2 of my sisters dead. The sorrow I feel is massive and often too much to bear. I miss both Heather and Maddie equally. Their deaths have left equal-sized holes in my heart. However, there's a profound difference in the layers of suffering, anguish, and trauma between when a sister dies of a disease and when a sister goes missing for over 2 months, is found violently murdered, and then having to uphold her dignity during an arduous journey to justice. Maddie was an amazing aunt to my 3 daughters and to my other stepsister Katya's 2 young children. She was also the most loving mother to her own 2 children. Between us, there are 7 young children that make up a most incredible cousin crew, the youngest of whom will be 4 within the week, and the oldest ones who will be turning 10 tomorrow. My most cherished memories of Maddie are the times these kids were able to be together during family events. To no one's surprise, Maddie was often at the center of this cousin crew, being the energetic, fun, creative mom and aunt that we all knew her to be. I miss my conversations with Maddie about navigating the intertwining joys and struggles of raising our little humans. Maddie brought an enormous amount of light and laughter to our lives. Backyard games, pool parties at Grandpa and Gaggi's house, and family celebrations will never be the same. Throughout the course of the trial, we heard a lot about Adam's cloak of innocence. Today, on this day of sentencing, I ask the court to reflect on what Adam's actions have done to the children in our family. The children in our family don't get to walk through their young lives shrouded in a cloak of childhood innocence anymore. It was ripped from each of their tiny shoulders, stomped on, shredded, destroyed. My youngest twin daughter talks a lot about missing Maddie, how it's not fair Maddie was killed, and how Maddie didn't deserve what happened to her. One of the most difficult questions she asks is, why would Adam do this to someone he had kids with and said he loved? It is this question and its answer that gets to the heart of the most insidious, secret truth within our society: domestic abuse and violence. It is a question I agonize over, and it is one that keeps me awake at night. My middle daughter, my youngest twin, had an immensely difficult time during the trial. She was often in tears, asking me things like, why did Adam do this? Why did he kill Maddie? Why didn't he tell people he did this so people didn't have to search for her? Why doesn't he tell people now so everyone doesn't have to be at the trial? The question of why remains for us all. It is a simple word with an endless ability to cut at our hearts, because it has no answer that will ever be sufficient. My youngest daughter always wants to know, how was Maddie killed? She is not satisfied with an answer of, Adam made Maddie stop breathing. She wants to know exactly how. She wants the details. There's no room for the gray space within my answers to her questions. She also repeatedly asks, is Adam still in jail? The underlying, unspoken questions here, of course, are, am I safe? Can it happen to me? During one of our cousin's sleepovers, my youngest daughter and Maddie's son Noah came into my room, both of their little faces streaked with tears. My youngest daughter told me through her sobs, Noah woke me up. He is crying and asking for his mommy. As a parent of young children, I am no stranger to middle-of-the-night wake-ups or kids being scared or worried. I am supposed to simply be able to explain that monsters aren't real, that they don't live under our beds or in our homes. I am supposed to be able to add another nightlight, maybe make some homemade monster spray, and hug their fears away as they drift off to sleep, forgetting their nightmare by daybreak. Nothing prepared me to try to comfort my nephew, who will never again be able to see, hear, or hug his mommy, because there is, in fact, a real-life monster who killed his mommy. I feel it is a nightmare that little Noah may never be able to escape, because the reality for him is that this monster and his father are one and the same. With young children involved, we don't have the privilege of pretending that the darkest and most difficult days are behind us. The generational trauma will likely be repeated in waves throughout the years, as each child eventually learns and struggles to process the entirety of the horrific truth and the gruesome details behind Maddie's disappearance and brutal murder. For me, the emotional burden I carry weighs heavily on my heart. I often robotically and mechanically go through the routine of life, searching for a sense of normalcy. I've been left with an inability to truly accept joy. I am often flooded with a feeling of triviality that seeps into the far reaches of my existence. My support system is largely comprised of friends and family who have also been deeply impacted. Previously sturdy core relationships and dynamics have been innately changed. This is especially true with my mom, who is now raising children younger than my own, and who no longer has the ability or capacity to be there for me or my kids in the same way she was before March 31st, 2023. I grieve for the connection, closeness, and memories that have been lost or never made. I haven't yet figured out how to incorporate this tragedy into my everyday life, even though I know I must. There are days when there are glimmers of hope, days when I can walk gracefully, holding hands with both my grief and my gratitude. However, there are many days where I stumble, and there are roadblocks I must continue to face. Even simply driving my kids to school can be triggering. On one road, there is culvert after culvert after culvert. Immediately, all I can see in my mind are flashbacks of Maddie's short, brown curly hair poking out of the top of the fitted sheet. Flashbacks of multiple law enforcement officers pulling Maddie out of the culvert where she was inhumanely stuffed and hidden. Flashbacks to the towel, tied, slip-knotted, extremely tightly around her face. I try in vain to forget the surreal feeling I had as I watched the horrific video unfold in the courtroom. It was as though my body had separated from itself. I attempt to hold back the feelings of devastation I had the day Maddie was found. I cannot help but feel heartbroken about how scared and desperate Maddie must have been in her final moments of life. Those images, those feelings, that knowledge, They are not anything I will ever forget. As painful as it all is, they are also not something that should ever be forgotten. Adam needs to be held accountable. Adam's actions were disgusting, sickening, and particularly cruel. On the morning of March 31st, 2023, Adam seemingly felt entitled to unilaterally impart a death sentence on Maddie. Simultaneously, Adam gave each of us a life sentence as well. There's no parole for any of us to be released from this nightmare. This is forever our unthinkable reality. I am asking, pleading with the court today to follow through with mandatory and maximum sentencing for Adam. Life in prison with no possibility of parole. Thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Sonneman.
Your Honor, the next individual will be David Kingsbury, the father of Madeline Kingsbury.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon, Mr. Kingsbury.
For the record, my name is David Kingsbury.
Whenever
I'm
you're ready,
Madeline's
sir.
father. I have to think that there are a few things that's truly difficult to bear as the death of your child. The exception being that child brutally and senselessly murdered. It's an almost intolerable weight. Each morning my mind painfully adjusts to the realization that it's not just a bad dream. Madeline is still really dead and Adam Fravel killed her. My family bears it because we have to go on, but there's no avoiding the terrible anger, the tears, the gut-wrenching grief, the inevitable woulda, coulda, shouldas, and the unanswerable question, how could someone do this? Especially to someone as special as Madeline. The facts laid bare that she was attacked and killed by a coward twice her size, someone who she had once loved. She had made the audacious decision that she didn't deserve to be used or abused by him anymore. With that decision, her future was now looking bright, whereas life with him had been bleak and miserable. Unfortunately, she fatally misjudged him. When he realized that he couldn't control or manipulate her any longer, he decided to kill her. He thought, incredibly, he'd run home to his parents' house and apparently just wait it out. He thought no one would care about what happened to Madeline. No one would be the wiser. She'd just fade into memory while he'd get away with murder. There's really no words to adequately describe what impact this has had. I've experienced many things that will stay with me always. With a few examples, you can perhaps put yourself in my place. 69 days spent searching desperately for her. Nights staring out into the darkness, wondering where she was. Wondering if she was alive or dead, and wondering if we would ever find her. Then informing my family that our beloved daughter and sister was found dead. Learning that her body had been found wrapped in a sheet, stuffed in a culvert, covered with brush at the end of a dead-end road. Finally located because the sheriff's deputy was alerted by an unusually large gathering of flies. authoring my youngest child's obituary. Telling my grandchildren they'd never see their mommy again because their father had hurt her so badly that she died. For my final goodbye to my beautiful daughter, I held her, talked to her, sung to her, and promised we'd get her justice. She was in a body bag. Megan wanted to see her sister's body. I begged and prevailed on her not to do so. Better to remember Maddie as she was. Not an awful sight that would scar her psyche forever. I ordered an immediate cremation. Meanwhile, we were engaged in a very public and hotly contested court battle with Fravel for custody of Maddie's children. Though he was finally arrested and charged with her murder, this litigation continued. Moments before a video hearing began, the court's camera was live. He noticed we were on the video feed, locked eyes with my wife and I, and smirked at us. Smirked. At that moment, his true nature revealed. Resolute cruelty and pure evil. For me, certain proof that he killed Madeline, proof that he was glad he did it, and proof that he derives great pleasure from the carnage, destruction, and the grief he's caused. His only regret was being held accountable. The crocodile tears he shed in the courtroom the day the guilty verdicts came in were for himself. No remorse for what he's done to Madeline, to Ellie, and Noah, or the people that loved them. A word of thanks. Without the dedication of law enforcement, the efforts of thousands of community volunteers, the hard work of the county attorney's office and this court, he'd still be free and would most likely have the children. Madeline will still be in that culvert, deep in the woods, at the end of a dead-end road. My family owes a debt we can never repay. One of my greatest fears when Madeline disappeared was that no one would care. Thank God that wasn't true. She would send me messages, and it always came up on my phone that it was from the world's greatest kid. She truly was. And always will be the apple of my eye. Her name is Maddie. Thank you.
Ms. Sonneman.
Your Honor, the next individual will be Megan Kingsbury Hancock, who is Madeline Kingsbury's sister.
Will you please state your full name for the record?
Yes, Megan Hancock.
Go ahead, Ms. Hancock.
Thank you. Trying to describe how my sister, Madeline Jane Kingsbury's murder has impacted me is impossible, and it will always be impossible. Living through the experience of having a loved one being an endangered missing person for 69 days until they are ultimately found dead, discarded in the wilderness, wrapped and duct taped into a bed sheet. How do I tell you how that has impacted me. For many days and nights while Madeline was missing, myself and my family, we couldn't eat, we couldn't sleep, could hardly look at each other or speak to one another. We were robotic. Before Madeline was found, those 69 days were absolute torture. The world continues around you. People go to work, they run their errands, they go on vacation, they spend time with their kids, but you're there frozen in time. Life doesn't continue for you until you've completed the mission that you're on, and that was to find Madeline. For months, we lived out of hotels and suitcases. I was out of work. We were away from our homes, our friends, any sense of normalcy. My days consisted of news and law enforcement interviews, trying to map out areas in the wilderness to search, endless cups of coffee in place of food, many tears, very late nights, maybe 3 hours of sleep, and then getting up to do it all over again. Our days were spent in fields and marshes, by rivers and creeks, in the bluffs and in forests, looking for any sign of Madeline. I watched my parents crumble and disintegrate and turn into shadows of themselves. Their eyes having that 1,000-yard stare and just empty. Not knowing what to say or do and just being at a complete loss. How do I tell you what it's like to have Madeline's children have to tell them that we don't know where their mommy is and that she's lost? How do you explain that to two kids that are so young? How do you explain to them that they can't ever go back to the home that they knew and they will never live with their parents again? I was not the one to ultimately tell the children that their mother died. My father and stepmother took that burden, but I've certainly been there for the questions and the wonderings of a 3- and 6-year-old, both about their mother and their father. I've been there to hear my 6-year-old niece say that mommy was too young to die. And I will always remember exactly where in my home I was sitting when my dad told us all that remains had been found, and they were 99% sure that they belonged to my sister Madeline. I'll always remember how I fell to the floor and I'll always remember the absolute feeling of emptiness in the days and weeks after. And how do I tell you what it was like to drive with my dad to accompany Madeline's remains to the funeral home where she would ultimately be cremated? I was in the same vehicle as her. She was right there. How could she be that person in the body bag right behind me? How can that be true? And how can I tell you what it was like to try to have a semblance of a goodbye through that body bag? Watching my father collapse under her and say how sorry he was over and over again, and singing "You Are My Sunshine" to her one last time. I'll never forget the sounds he made of grief and sorrow. How can I tell you what it was like to feel how much of her was already gone, to hold her hand through the body bag, to know that she was right there? To know that if I did see her, that wouldn't be her anymore. How can I tell you what it was like to accompany her right to the end, helping to guide her into the incinerator because we refused to let her be alone anymore? I can't tell you what it was like. It's indescribable. In the aftermath, trying to piece my life back together, many aspects of my daily life and my being
have been affected. I couldn't get a proper night's sleep. I still can't. I could hardly leave the house. I rarely spoke to anyone. I wasn't caring for myself on a base level. Intrusive thoughts, flashbacks. I started trauma therapy and was diagnosed with PTSD. This has affected my job and my ability to work as before, affected my physical, my mental health, my relationships with my husband, my family, and my friends. I was recently married, an event my sister Madeline should have been present for. She should have been there for the dress shopping, the planning. She should have been there standing right beside me as my maid of honor. And though my wedding day was one of my happiest days, but it was also one of my hardest. I didn't want to get married without her, but that choice was made for me by somebody else. That's one of the worst parts, is that we have no choice. Madeline is gone. Every holiday, every special event, every milestone, we have no choice. We have to carry on without her. The defendant made the choice to take her life, which he had no right to do. He made the choice to rob the children of their mother and consequently of their father as well. Sometimes, not very often, I do think of the defendant, and I've never truly hated anyone before. Some people have the ability to forgive and believe that it frees them and lessens their burden, and I can appreciate that. I will never forgive what he has done. And of course, I will never forget. And some would say that my hatred will eat me alive. I would disagree. The amount of space that the defendant holds in my mind is so small, it's minuscule even. The amount of space in my mind and my heart that I hold for Madeline is exponentially larger. The amount of pure love I held and still hold for my sister, Madeline, far outweighs the hatred that I feel. And the defendant will most likely proclaim his innocence for the rest of his life. Myself and my family and friends of Madeline do not need him to admit it, because we all know the truth. Perhaps the defendant is happy with what has become of my family and what has become of Madeline, and to that I would say this: we are not broken. Madeline will forever be remembered and loved. Her children will know who their mother is and was. They will also know, when they're old enough, what happened to her, and that their father is the monster who took her from them. We will be there with them to carry them through the hard times and guide them through life as Madeline would have. And though the defendant's actions have shrouded us in darkness for a time, Madeline's light will never be extinguished. Her name and her loving, kind spirit will never be forgotten. Thank you.
Ms. Sonneman?
Thank you, Your Honor. Diana Miller, again, who's our Crime Victims Services Coordinator, is going to read the statements of Kathy Kingsbury and Stephen Kingsbury. Kathy Kingsbury would like to stand up with Ms. Miller while she reads that, if the court would allow that.
Sure, that's fine. Ms. Kingsbury? Ms. Miller, could you just state your full name and the victim's full name as well for the record?
Diana Miller, Catherine Kingsbury.
Go ahead.
Your Honor. On April 4th, 2023, 5 days after Maddie was last seen alive, social services brought Ellie and Noah to the hotel where we were staying. The children let out squeals of joy when they saw so many of their family gathered together. They ran and played for hours. That night, they slept in bed next to Dave and me in our hotel room. In the middle of the night, Ellie started crying, "I want Mommy." Noah heard her and started whimpering, "Mommy, Mommy." I rushed to their bed to comfort them while trying the best that I could to hold in my tears and my anguish for their sake. Dave involuntarily let out a loud moan and ran to the bathroom to turn on the shower to try to muffle his guttural cries of agony. His wailing tore my heart to pieces. He couldn't bear to come out for 3 full hours. It was a horrific night that no one should ever have to experience in their lifetime. The only saving grace was that I was able to comfort the children and get them back to sleep right away. Notably, there were no more pleas for Daddy. 2 days earlier, Krista, Maddie's mom, had been sitting with us in our hotel room. We were 3 inconsolable parents seeking refuge with one another. We knew that Maddie would never voluntarily leave her children. Sorrow and agony overcame us, and Krista retreated to the bathroom and attempted to stifle her own guttural wails while I fought to manage my breathless sobbing. A parent's heartache at the loss of a child cannot be comforted. Our lives had forever been turned upside down. And this was only the first few days of the emotional torture that we endured. After Maddie was deemed to be missing, we all cried until we couldn't cry anymore. Most of us couldn't sleep more than a couple of hours at a time, if at all. Eating was something that we forced ourselves to do. We ran out of words to say to each other. It's impossible to accurately describe the agony that we all suffered and our feelings of helplessness. We cannot thank the community enough for bringing food, providing housing, searching, plus so much more while we struggled to carry on each day. Dave and I spent the first 6 weeks in Winona to be near where Maddie had last been seen alive. This was very important to us. We eventually had to make the difficult decision to leave for the sake of the children and to get them back to our own home and more normalcy. The home where Maddie had grown up and that the children knew. It wasn't an easy decision to make because we felt like we were abandoning Maddie. Since she had not yet been found. It was 69 days of pure torture, not knowing where Maddie's body had maliciously been hidden. She was out there in the snow, the rain, the heat, and yet Adam did not come clean, nor did he show any compassion or remorse. The heartache has been endless and compounded. On May 31st, 2023, we were back in Winona at a hotel, and we all eventually fell asleep. A few hours later, Ellie woke up and was unusually insistent that I lie down next to her, so I did. She held onto my arm so tightly that my arm went numb, but she went back to sleep. Noah was on the other side of the bed. He suddenly became distraught and restlessly started whimpering, "Mama, Mama," and extended one arm upwards as if reaching for something. He had not done this before. I checked my phone to see what time it was and saw that it was already after midnight. It was Maddie's birthday. We had not yet told the children that Mommy's birthday was that day. Possibly it was a coincidence that this happened. What do I know, though, and all too clearly, what I do know, though, and all too clearly, was the sick feeling I had in my stomach that night, and that this incident will forever be etched in my mind. By all accounts, Maddie's children are happy and thriving. Dave and I have been blessed to be able to be with them nearly every day since April 4th, 2023. Yet Ellie and Noah rightfully belong in the arms of their mother. All of us have made it our mission to be sure that they feel safe and secure and that they're grounded. Those of us who know them and see them regularly, if not daily, will tell you that you wouldn't know that the children have suffered the tragedy that they have. We're grateful for that for their sake. They're young and resilient now and deserve to be happy as they are. Sadly, though, as they grow older, they will begin to understand that their father was not only convicted of killing their mother, but that he also planned it. Maddie loved her children more than anything else on this earth. Her efforts to make sure that her children's future included their father were slashed by that very same father. I will never understand a father who could and did do this to his children. He took away a mother's love, the type of love that only Maddie could give them. The knowledge of this horror will haunt me forever. All that Adam had to do was walk away and let Maddie go. He chose not to do that. He chose evil over good, forever causing emotional harm to his own children. All of us in Maddie's immediate family, her extended family, and her friends will make sure that the children will grow up knowing their mother's love. It's the best that we can do, yet it will never be enough because we can't get her back, and she can't be with her precious children. Maddie was undoubtedly one of the most genuinely beautiful souls I've ever known in my life. I'm grateful for the time that I had with her and that I was able to be loved by her, and I couldn't have loved Maddie more if she had been my biological child. This spunky little spirit of a girl had my heart from the beginning. Never again will we have our long talks and share our hopes, our joys, our sorrows, and concerns in life. I'll never again be able to hear her singing in the kitchen or laugh with her or hear her walk in the door and say, "I'm home." Every day I wake up and my first realization is that she's gone and she's not coming back. Her loss in my life is irreparable. I have now lost 2 daughters, one of whom was purposely taken from us. I thank the court for this opportunity to be heard, and I support a life sentence without parole.
Thank you, Ms. Kingsbury. Thank you, Ms. Miller.
Your Honor, this is the victim impact statement of Stephen Kingsbury, Madeline's brother. Your Honor, it is a struggle to attempt to summarize on paper the immeasurable impact that this incident has had on our entire family. The murder of my younger sister, Madeline Jane Kingsbury, has created without a doubt a multi-generational wound that will take an untold number of years to heal. For some, it may never. The overwhelming grief and guilt of those closest to the situation, not only geographically, but those with intimate knowledge of the patterns of control and abuse exhibited by the defendant over the years toward Madeline, I'm certain will be haunted forever by the thought that their efforts, if made at all to intervene, were not good enough to defeat the evil that clouded her day-to-day life. The double life she lived was imposed by one individual. The meticulously thought out, painstakingly crafted, self-serving environment and mechanisms were created by leveraging her good nature, optimism, emotional weakness, fears, and love of her children. Madeline had everything to look forward to in life, a promising career path, and the joy of raising her children to adulthood, maybe even to see grandchildren of her own one day. There's truly no limit on how much of a gift she was and would have been to those who loved her, those she loved, and the world around her. Despite the conditions she endured, Madeline was making her way in the world in a very meaningful and impactful fashion. Simply put, she was robbed in the most permanent of ways: brutal, deliberate, hands-on violence. From my experience as a service member with 3 combat tours, I can without a doubt state with full belief and or opinion that the way she was stolen from this world was carried out with the most intimately savage intentions and actions a human being can visit on another. As involved and personal as it gets, and there are no half measures or fumblings if there's an end state in mind by the perpetrator. This was not for any cause other than self-centered fear, greed, embarrassment, and personal failings of the guilty party as a functioning member of society, partner, a father, and a man, being past and present extremely subpar in all these respects. What has happened is so complexly tragic that mentally unpacking and examining it all is an arduous labor with what at times seems to have no end. For many, there isn't one. The verdict in this case brings about some measure of closure, knowing what the sentence generally entails. But for most of us, closure is a hollow term. My parents have still lost a child, my siblings and I a sister. Most heart-wrenching, her 2 innocent children are robbed of their mother. Children are supposed to be innocent. In an effort to preserve this, they only know that mommy and daddy are both gone. They use words that have no meaning to them, as told to them by others, to try to understand concepts and realities that will have no true substance until they're old enough to be told what has transpired. It will always have to be considered the impact this will have on their lives, how it will potentially steer the course for the people they grew up to be. It's a challenge that will be constant for them in varying degrees. They will know of their mother, they will know what happened to her, and why she isn't there to shepherd them through this world in a way that only a loving mother can. No earthly atonement for her murder will measure up to match the gravity of the sin. It's my opinion that for any persons who commit a crime so specifically motivated by greed and the narcissistic need for control, and who can for no justified reason snuff out another soul with such arrogance and casual disregard for life, there are no earthly works or repentance that can reshape said person's nature at its core for real change. That power lies with God alone. I submit in the end, all will be judged accordingly. We extend our utmost gratitude to all parties involved in bringing justice in accordance with our laws. It can never be understated how much our family appreciates all tireless, relentless work effort. Truth and right have prevailed regardless of obstacles. Let it be heard that everyone has the ability to create positive change in the lives of those around them. Actions are often greater than words. We have a responsibility to each other as human beings to take steps to intervene and assist in times of crisis, especially for those who are too broken or lost to advocate for themselves. I would like to thank the court for for hearing this statement, Victim Services for reading it aloud in my stead, and all present to hear.
Do you prefer that we stand or sit?
However.
Elected by the citizens of Winona County to serve this community as the Chief Prosecutor for Winona County. And in that capacity, I ask you to sentence Adam Taylor Fravel according to the law. A jury found Mr. Fravel guilty of first-degree premeditated murder and 3 crimes. Premeditated murder. The law provides that the punishment for first-degree premeditated murder is life in prison without the possibility of parole, and I ask you to impose that sentence. Your Honor, this case profoundly affected our community like no other I have observed in my 35 years in Winona County practicing law, and certainly not like any other during my 14 years as Winona County attorney. While every crime that is committed affects our community's sense of safety and security, the crimes committed by Mr. Fravel shook the very foundations of our community, shedding a very bright light on the extremes of domestic violence and revealing the evil acts of a man who had no care as to how his actions would affect his children for their lifetimes. This case galvanized a community to search for a missing mom of 2 young children, whose life ended tragically, leaving a gaping hole in the lives of those she loved and who loved her. When Madeline Jane Kingsbury's close friends and family became concerned about after they did not hear from her on March 31st, 2023, her family contacted the Winona City Police Department that same day to report her missing. The police department launched an investigation and shortly thereafter, with the help of area law enforcement agencies, began a massive search for Ms. Kingsbury. When law enforcement asked for help to expand the search area, over 2,000 individuals from across the region responded. Led by the Winona City Police Department, the law enforcement community and the community at large worked tirelessly to find Madeline Jane Kingsbury. The community was also galvanized to find her and were joined by other community members at a packed vigil on May 6, 2023, at First Congregational Church here in the city of Winona, a vigil that had been moved from Lake Park due to weather conditions. Over 250 people in person and another 700 or so online came together at that vigil for Madeline Jane Kingsbury. A quote from the WCCO TV station's report about the vigil is telling. Kingsbury's sorority sisters, family, friends, and others packed inside First Congregational Church in Winona, keeping her memory alive, along with the hope that someone would find her. Another quote from that same report from one individual said, "She was the kindest, most beautiful soul. Even on the brightest days, it still feels dark and gloomy without her here. I wake up from nightmares and quickly realize they are not as terrifying as the nightmare I am living through." Your Honor, Adam Taylor Fravel had concealed Madeline Jane Kingsbury's body in such a way that he hoped she would never have been found, but she was found due to the tenacity of law enforcement and the community searching to find her. 69 long and agonizing days after Madeline Jane Kingsbury went missing, her decomposing body was finally discovered on June 7th, 2023, by a Fillmore County deputy sheriff who heard the noise of an unusual amount of flies swarming. Those flies led the deputy to find Ms. Kingsbury's body concealed both in that culvert and covered with heavy logs and branches far away from her Winona home. Upon that discovery, hope gave way to grief and anger. The community at large mourned her death along with her family and friends. Mr. Fravel's actions have forever changed the lives of others. This includes traumatizing the children he shared with Ms. Kingsbury, who were 2 and 5 at the time of her death. As the family impact statements reveal, the children kept asking for their mommy. Where's mommy? Mr. Fravel's actions put an entire community in mourning, a community in shock, left her family devastated, left the lives of her children changed forever because of their father's evil act. But Your Honor, justice has caught up with Adam Taylor Fravel, and justice will be served for Madeline Jane Kingsbury, her family, her friends, her community, this community, by this court sentencing Adam Taylor Fravel to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sonneman. Mr. Bauer?
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, the defendant and the defense team acknowledges the jury's verdict in this case, and obviously the service that jury put in over the course of multiple weeks. Although we disagree with the verdict and whether there existed sufficient evidence to support some verdicts in this case, we understand Mr. Fravel has a right to appeal. He will certainly exercise that right moving forward. We also recognize that given the Minnesota statute in this case, that a first-degree murder verdict requires life imprisonment, and specifically that under Minnesota statute 609.106, the court does not have any ability to give any type of sentence other than life without the possibility of parole. We anticipate the court will do that in this case, and I have nothing further. Thank you.
You don't have to say anything. Your attorney for you, but is there anything else you want to say before I impose sentence?
Very briefly. I never caused harm to Maddie, and I am innocent. Thank you.
Today, this courtroom serves as a reminder of the tragic results of a planned act of violence that has forever changed the lives of at least 2 families and left a lasting impact on our community. We mourn the loss of Maddie Kingsbury, a life taken too soon by an act of unimaginable cruelty. To Maddie's family, no words from this court can undo what has been taken from you. The verdict in this case affirms Maddie's worth, our commitment to justice, and our resolve to hold people accountable for such acts. To the family of the defendant, I do recognize the weight of this day for you as well. You too face a loss, though it is different from that of the victim's family. Your pain, though distinct, is not overlooked by this court. Domestic violence affects not only the victim, but entire families and communities, leaving deep scars. In this case, the greatest impact is on the 2 young children who have lost both their mother and their father. Guidance from everyone around them to heal. Their suffering is a powerful reminder of the far-reaching effects of violence and the importance of addressing and preventing it. Mr. Fravel. Children and on the community. It is impossible to fully understand the pain that you have caused, not only for those who love Maddie, but also for your own family, who must now deal with the consequences of your actions. You have taken from these children not just their mother, but their stability and a sense of security that every child deserves. They will carry the burden of this tragedy for the rest of their lives. Their future is forever changed by your actions. As a society, we have laws to protect the vulnerable, maintain order, and ensure accountability. When those laws are broken in such a deliberate and cruel manner, it is the court's responsibility to act. The sentence in this case will reflect the seriousness of your crime and will ensure justice for Maddie and her family. It will be a clear reminder that actions do have consequences and that violence like this will not be tolerated. Before proceeding with sentencing, I would like to acknowledge the work of law enforcement, the officers, and the investigators in this case. Their efforts have been crucial in ensuring justice is served. Mr. Fravel, the jury has found you guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder and 2 counts of second-degree murder. Under Minnesota statutes, a defendant may not be convicted of multiple counts of murder for the same offense arising from the same acts and involving the same victim. Therefore, you will be sentenced solely for the conviction of murder in the first degree premeditation, with the remaining charges being vacated as lesser included offenses. The sentencing worksheet is correct. This is a severity level 12 offense. Under Minnesota statute, the law mandates a sentence of life imprisonment without the possibility of release for first-degree murder premeditation. Therefore, Mr. Fravel, it is the judgment of this court that you be committed to the custody of the Commissioner of Corrections and sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of release. The sentence reflects the severity of your actions and serves as a clear statement that such violence will not be tolerated in this community. It is my hope that today's proceedings will bring a measure of closure for those impacted and inspire collective action to prevent future tragedies of this nature. Mr. Fravel, you do have to provide a DNA sample that is pursuant to statute, and an $85 surcharge will be imposed and sent to collections. You do have the right to appeal your conviction or the sentence or both directly to the Minnesota Supreme Court. I strongly encourage you to consult with your attorney or the State Public Defender's Office to understand your options regarding an appeal. Mr. Fravel, do you have any questions, or is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, good.
Anything further from the state?
Nothing further, Your Honor, thank you.
Mr. Bauer?
No, thank you.
Right, Mr. Fravel, you are hereby remanded to the custody of the Commissioner of Corrections to serve your sentence. This court is adjourned.
All rise.